You are listening to Growing Up in America the Way It Is. This is a rebroadcast of our live episode, which airs every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central, 1 FM KPFT Pacifica Radio here in Houston, Texas.
The cars in the city go rushing by. I sit here alone.
Welcome to Growing Up in America. Here it is on KPFT Pacifica Radio. Bob Sanborn here. Joining me as co-host today, Nadia Salibi will be with us. Carolyn Roberts is with us. So we're excited about the show. It's going to be a great show today as we sort of figure out how our kids are doing here in America, here in Texas, here in Houston. We're going to be looking at a number of pretty interesting issues today. Joining us on the program, Jacob Newsome will be with us. He's the founder and CEO of The Power of the Narrative, and we're going to be talking about education and health equity. You're listening to Growing Up in America here on KPFT Pacifica Radio. Jacob, I think, is going to be pretty interesting, Carolyn. He is the founder and CEO of Power of the Narrative and the founder of Sinclair Scholars. We're going to be talking about education and health equity. We'll be right back here on Growing Up in America. So Jacob Newsome is with us. Jacob is the founder and CEO of Power of the Narrative. And Jacob, has Pink Pony Club ever been your walk-up song? Because it is today.
I was jamming to it.
Yeah, exactly. I love that song. It's fantastic. But, you know, I've been with people and for the last little bit and talking about this song. There's a lot of people who don't know about this song, Carolyn. Can you believe that?
Is that because you were in Europe?
I was in Europe.
It'll hit next year.
Jacob, talk a little bit about these groups that you're about. Power of the Narrative, Sinclair Scholars. What's that all about? And welcome to the program, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you. I'm honored to be here. Well, for everyone listening, my name is Jacob Newsome. I'm the founder of Power of the Narrative and Sinclair Scholars. So I actually made Sinclair Scholars first as a private tutoring business. And then, you know, I thought about how can I bring this to public education. And so Sinclair Scholars works with students with learning disabilities, as well as we've evolved to like doing trauma work with teens, and then we'll expand to adults in the future. But Power of the Narrative is the main company. Essentially, in a nutshell, we rewrite people's narratives before their narratives write their ending. In essence, that's what those two companies work with.
What does that mean, Jacob, to write the narrative before the narrative is written? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, for one, you know, when I'm working with students in district, a lot of the narratives that they have about themselves is, you know, I failed the STAR test multiple times. I just can't do it. Or, you know, my parents think I'm a disappointment. Or like when I'm on a podcast and I'm working with people who need to reclaim their narratives from a history of trauma. And so sometimes how that looks is them telling their story without being edited, interrupted, like the raw story. And I think it's a gift to help people reclaim themselves. So when we talk about rewriting their narratives, in a lot of ways, I'm helping people walk back to themselves.
So what's an example of, let's say I am a youngster and I've been told by so many people, you know, hey, you're never going to be successful. How is that narrative rewritten? Because I get the power of that, right? How do you go about rewriting that narrative?
Man, the easiest one to give to a youngster, which I feel like anybody under 18 is a youngster to me, so I'll define it like that.
Yeah.
Easiest one I give to them is the narrative rewrite, which I have them write on a piece of paper. I'm like, hey, you know, write everything you thought you needed to be, what everyone's told you to be, you know, whether that's, you know, you need to be Christian, you need to be a 4.0 student, et cetera. Write all the stuff that's weighing you down. And I have them write it on a piece of paper. I tell them, hey, I'm never going to look at this stuff, you know, but this is for you. They write it out. And then I say, okay, throw it away. We're done with that. Give them a second piece of paper. So what's the real narrative you want to take on? Who do you want to be? And I have students, they write that narrative down. And I think that's the first time a seed is planted that they could be something different than they were told.
And they're establishing their own values. That's beautiful.
Yes, exactly. So that's an example.
Can you talk a little bit about how trauma shows up in learning? And what that can look like when students are trying to learn, but they have this history of trauma?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for one, I'll say that an interesting stat is that only 18% of Texas districts offer trauma-informed education, despite 1 in 3 students having experienced trauma. And so how it shows up in education is that you just can't succeed when something's weighing you down. You can't fly if something's weighing you down. And so a lot, like, for example, a lot of students come from, I'll say, a background where their parents are immigrants, and that's severely affecting their education right now. You have students had that of experience. And they've experienced a myriad of things without getting into the details. But we see a lot time and time again that these students score lower on STAR tests, graduation rates are lower, and it seems like a lot of systems aren't trained to get to the root of what's actually going on. It's because a lot of these things manifest as behavioral issues too. Like these students get written up more. You have Black students getting written up and suspended more than white students on average.
Yep.
And so, the communities that do need this stuff, unfortunately, do not get it. And so that's a little bit about how it shows up in education. These students score worse across the board, and it just festers like a disease, I'll say.
Let's talk a little bit about equity, Jacob, because what you're getting at in many ways is equity. And a lot of times we don't realize that for kids that are coming from low-income households, those could be Black households, there could be Latino households, they could be white households, low income, but you're layered with this whole idea of one, first and foremost, your parents are making less money. They bring that trauma back with them. They themselves are not pleased with themselves. Like, I should be making more money. I want to, do more for my kids. And then there might be problems in the marriage, another trauma. There may be trouble in terms of living in this lower income neighborhood, getting to school. I mean, there's so many layers of trauma there that so many times the general public listens around these things and they think it's just one thing of trauma. Let's try to solve that. But we're talking about layers of trauma and layers of inequity for a lot of these kids. It's surprising sometimes when you know enough, as you do, about some of these kids. It's surprising that they can be successful, but we see it happening though.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And I'm just amazed at, how you put it all together. Cause I'm the best example of this. Everything you talked about, I mean, that was me. I grew up in a low income environment, one parent household, first generation college student. And, I think what it boils down to for me after going through extensive trauma informed therapy is it's about, and I don't want to use this word, like it's about resilience, but not in the way you think where you have to bootstrap it. It's about who teaches you to weather through these things, because a lot of, like, for instance, a parental relationship, while that is something that does affect a kid growing up, it's ultimately something that you have to kind of think about, like, okay, this is what my parents are going through. This doesn't say anything about me, but no one teaches you that.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people don't realize also, Jacob, is that while you and I may have been sort of, a picture card for these people, postcards for these, for this stuff, there's a lot of postcards out there, right? I mean, especially when we talk in Texas and in Houston, there are a lot of kids that have a lot of this stuff going on. It's not unusual. So I think.
Right. You guys are kind of the dream scenario versus, a lot of kids don't make it out.
Right. I often will say this, Jacob, Carolyn's heard me say this before, is that, there are a couple of us, right, that we could say we beat the odds. But why do we have a system that's about beating the odds? The system should be the odds are in everyone's favor. We're doing everything possible to let every kid succeed. It shouldn't be about beating the odds, right? It should be evening the odds, if you will.
Jacob, I just have one more question for you. So when we look at public health policy and how these inequities result in long-term health consequences, what do you think we should be doing differently? How can we better support this population?
Man, that is a good question. And I feel like I would love to go in more detail about this in another episode, but I'll say immediately that, there's plenty of research out there already about health inequities. I'd say we got to listen. We got to take it seriously, because the gap is only widening. Every year we ignore these real inequities. And it's so crazy how when you do health equity research, it actually overlaps with other research like educational inequities. And so it's always that, lower income Black and brown students pretty much at the bottom of the statistics. And so I think it's about acknowledging that they exist, which some do, some don't, but also, like, let's stop using Band-Aids and start actually making solutions and putting an end to them, I'll say. And I know that's like a big optimistic thing, but I'm confident that in my lifetime, we can make a big improvement in those.
Jacob Newsome is the founder and CEO of Power of the Narrative. Jacob, thank you so much for your work.
Thank you so much.
We do want to have you back because there's so much more in this to be talking about. So Karen and I are excited that you've been here. So take care, Jacob. We'll talk to you soon.